view controllers. I don't necessarily want to go through all of them. To be honest with you, I don't think I could get email actually up and working, but that's a system view controller. And I don't think I can actually get it working on the simulator. So system view controllers. So what I want to do is I want to look at Safari, like how would I launch a web browser within my application, and I want to look at how would I do handling for images and for my camera. So images that are already on disk being my photo library, and camera being I'm going to take a picture. So kind of two separate things there, although the code is nearly identical. Uh-oh, I'm getting that error now. I can't sign in either. All right. So with system view controllers, let's just go to our storyboard. I want to kind of handle the easy one first, which is Safari. So I want to launch a Safari instance within my application. So maybe maybe I have like my help file online so that I can update the documentation and stuff like that. So let's have a button trigger that. Interesting. So here's my button that's going to send me out to Safari. And I want that to trigger an action, so I'm going to bring up my assistant editor. I really don't need anything in the view did load, so let's get rid of that. And I'm just going to have that action getting triggered from my button. Thought I had my button. So I want it triggering an action, and it's going to be Safari touched. Okay. The way I'm going to do that is I want to create an instance of a browser. So here's my browser. And I never switch out of the assistant editor, but probably makes it annoying for you to look at. So I want a new Safari browser. It's going to be equal to this Safari, and you'll notice I'm not getting anything with Safari. I think it's like SF Safari View Controller is the name of the view controller that I want. That's actually in another library. It's Safari Services. So I'm going to import the Safari Services, and now if I create an instance of a Safari View Controller, it says, what URL do you want to send me to? Okay, so let's say I'm going to send you out to Apple, right? Like it's an iOS class, send you out to Apple. So I want to create a new URL. So the URL is going to be this URL that I create, and the URL takes a label which is a string. So http apple.com. Saying, hey, I need to fix that. Sure. So I have my Safari View Controller, and now I want to present it to the user. So you'll notice the present view controller to present, whether it's animated and what should happen when it's complete. See that method? Super easy to implement. So the view controller that I want to present is my browser. It's animated, and when it's complete, nothing's going to happen. Isn't it nice when it's 2 lines of code? It's like, oh yeah, that's easy. That's all it is. As a user, I don't have access to the address bar. Like the address bar is not available to me. Like I'm presenting a web-based view is the idea here. Okay, eventually I should have a button. Here's Safari bringing up apple.com. It loads it into a navigation controller automatically, so when I'm done with the browser, it goes back to my main view controller. Whatever URL you want to use. I see it all the time for help. You'll also see it for JavaScript-based applications. So if I'm doing React Native.
Looks fantastic. For a single page, it looks fantastic.
Yep. So a single page application, but I want it to be a native experience. So I don't want the user to have to open up their browser. I want an actual app. What I'll do is I'll just wrap an app with a Safari view controller. Apple kind of cracked down on that a little bit, saying, hey, this isn't really an iOS app. This is a web-based app. So now like they'll have you create like application launchers from Safari. But that happened a lot where like I have this web-based application. I want my mobile users to know how to use it. So they have a mobile icon. They click on the icon, it launches that web-based application. So I don't know necessarily what Apple's saying about it now, but I know that that happened a lot, and Apple was kind of like up in arms, like, "Hey, stop doing this. You're not. This isn't what it's intended for." Plus, you have to use Safari. Right? So Safari is pretty easy to work with. The images. So let's set up an image picker. So in order to have an image picker, what I want to do is I want to have no photo selected image, no photo icon. I'm looking for something where like I just haven't selected the image. No selected image. None of these look very good. Doesn't matter much. I guess I'm going to grab this one. No photo. Okay, and I'm going to use that on my storyboard, so I'll load it into the assets. And then I want it on my storyboard as a UI image. I don't know why aspect fill is not the default setting, but okay. What I want to be able to do though is I want to go out to my photo library, select an image and bring it back, and then once I've selected it, that's what renders here. Okay, so I'm going to have a button that triggers that. So I'm going to have a button that's going to ask me to go out to my photo library. It's going to trigger an action that's going to allow me to change this image. So I'm going to want an action for the button and then a reference, an outlet to this image so that I can update the image. So here's the image. The image. And then I'm going to have a photo library touched action. I don't know if I'm grabbing the button or if I'm getting the view. Photo library touched. So far, so good. Okay, so with this photo library touched, I want to create an instance of image picker, and I'm looking at the code. Okay, so I'm going to have an image picker equal to an image picker controller. It's a UI image picker controller. I have to set the delegate. And it's not going to let me do that. It's going to complain about it, saying, hey, that needs to implement the image picker controller delegate and the navigation controller delegate. So what it does is it launches that photo library into a navigation controller so that I can choose an image and then cancel out of there if I want to. So it automatically loads that into my navigation controller. I don't have to do anything with the navigation controller delegate, but I have to implement it. So UI image picker controller delegate and UI navigation controller delegate. So the navigation controller delegate I don't have to do anything with. The image picker controller delegate I do.
So every time we've used a delegate like that, we've always just said we just made it be self.
Yep.
Every time when you're not going to use self, is it kind of an obscure edge case?
It's definitely an obscure edge case. So like, for instance, let's say I was going to create my own controller and it's going to respond to actions. So then I might say, you can delegate whatever object you want. It's an edge case. Like I'm trying to think if I've ever set it to anything but self.
Yeah. It makes you wonder why you have to do it by default. To always do it.
So I shouldn't say that. So like if I created this modally, so like there's a modal dialog, it's an alert. So right now I'm just using present.
It just pops up in the top of the screen.
Yep. So I might choose a photo in that alert, that pop-up, and then the delegate is the parent that's behind the popover. Okay, so that it does happen, but it's pretty rare. Okay, so I'm going to have to set the delegate, and then I'm going to check if the source is available. So if my UI image picker controller is source available, and then I can choose my source type. So is the camera available? Is the photo library available? Photo library will be available on my simulator. The camera will not be available on my simulator. Okay, so if it's available, then I want to present it, just like we did before. That's it. So I think if I run this right now, it'll bring up my photo library. Okay, so I want to look at my photo library. This is the simulator camera roll. Has a couple of images. So I'm picking an image. Nothing's happening. You'll notice though that I am loaded into this navigation controller, so I can go back to my photos. I can cancel out of this, right? Thus the navigation controller delegate. Life's good there. So I present it. Remember I mentioned that you don't need to do anything with the navigation controller delegate. It just happens for you. It automatically loads it into that navigation controller. This image picker controller delegate is an issue for us though. So when I run this and I'm in my application and I'm in my photo library and I choose a photo, what I want to happen is I've chose the photo, I want to dismiss the photo library, and I want to populate this image with the photo that I selected. That's where this delegate comes in. I want to get notified that the user picked an image. Okay? Everyone good with that? Like that's what the delegate's for. Like, who should get notified that the user picked an image? I'm saying I want to get notified. This view controller should get notified. The way I get notified, I always have to look. It's the did finish picking media. Yep. So like if I just type in a func, it's the image picker controller. It's this one, not did cancel. Did finish picking media with info. Right? Like that's reasonable, I think. Getting the selected image, like this is what I have to look at in code all the time. So if I can let a selected image, so that I know that they pick something, is equal to this info that gets passed in. And then I have to go into this set of keys, so the UI image picker controller dot info key dot original image. So I want the image, but I need it treated as a UI image. So if I can take that image and say, hey, this is a UI image, then I can change the image. Why am I not getting an image? It's a UI view, not a UI image view. I screwed it up. So you can see this outlet is wrong. It's a UI view, not a UI image view. So my mistake. I need to fix that. So I don't want that outlet. I'm gonna break that outlet.
It should be a UI image view.
Should be like it should be this image view, yeah. And it's not. So I'm guessing the image right here is referencing my view, and I don't want that. That's gone. I'm going to bring up the assistant editor, so that reference is gone. I want this image to be the image. Okay, so it's still a UI view, because I just did that again, didn't I? I'm an idiot. So it's not a UI view, it's a UI image view. Now, if I drag this and create the outlet, now it's fine. Okay, so now I should be able to close my assistant editor, go back over to my view controller. Now I should be able to take the image and get the image for that image view and set it equal to the selected image that the user selected. And let's make this the user selected image so that everyone's on the same page. Okay, so I go ahead and run this. Go to my photo library. I'm selecting it.
Cancel out, I think it will.
So if I cancel out, it shows. If I go back, I can pick another one, cancel out, it shows. So if I cancel, then that image shows up. That's not the interaction that I want the user to have, right? That makes sense? It's working kind of the way I want, but not the way I want it to necessarily work. So I think I can take this picker. It's a reference to the photo library controller, like that UI image picker controller. So I can take the picker and dismiss it. So remember when it was doing it for us automatically? Like it would dismiss it automatically. I clicked an image and it would dismiss it automatically. That's the default event handler. Now, because I'm acting as this image picker controller delegate, and I'm saying, hey, I want to handle what happens when the user actually picks the image, it doesn't automatically dismiss that controller. So I have to explicitly say, once you've picked it, now I'm ready to dismiss it, and I'm ready to set the image. It's kind of like a default constructor, right? It's there, it works, but if you overwrite it, then you have to actually create a constructor for it. So I go pick my waterfall image or my flowers.
Can't imagine how much Stack Overflow would have been involved for me to find those 4 lines. Yeah.
This always bothers me. But I mean, there's millions of examples. Like, I mean, you know exactly what you want to do. It's like, how do you get that selected image? And like the search results are good. So like if I go out to Google and I do, it's a UI image picker, UI image picker controller selected image. Not the images. Yeah, and I mean, the results are, like, you'll see some of this stuff. This looks like Objective-C. So stop doing the search without Swift 4. This is even old, dismiss view controller. Like, I'm guessing they have some update in here for Swift 4. So I didn't know you could get the JPEG data and get the compression quality and sit like, and obviously that makes sense. Like your photo library is not your high-res photos, right? I try to tell my wife that every year. So we have a Christmas card that she always puts out with images, and she grabs them out of like iPhoto, and it's never like a high-resolution image. So then it always prints like garbage. I'm like, get the original image that it's from your iPhone. It's a really pretty high-resolution image. Like it shouldn't be all pixelated when it's printed on a, you know, a 5x11 or whatever. But I've given up. Okay, as soon as I say that, then I'm involved in the Christmas card making, and so I just kind of keep quiet now. It's like, yep. You laugh because it's true, and like you've all been there. I'm living it currently.
Text messages I've gotten the last week that say, "What's your new address?" Like, there's only one reason anybody asks that this time of year.
Yep. Okay, so kind of the corresponding system view controller that we'd use for taking a picture, right? So it's the exact same thing. So our photo library touched, we create an image picker controller, we set the delegate, we check if the source type's available, and in our case, the source type's not going to be available. Okay, if I run it on my phone, it'll say, hey, do you want to allow access to the device? Like that's what I want to prompt. So let's just wire it up and you'll see. So this is my photo library. I want another button. So instead of going to my photo library, I want to go out to my camera. I'm going to set up a different event handler just so we have two separate event handlers for it. Here's my assistant editor. It's very, very similar. So it's an action. It's going to be my camera touched. Type UI button. I want all of this same stuff. But since we already know that this is not going to be available, we don't want our photo library, we want the camera. Let's put an else in here. And I'm going to say, hey, the camera is not available. Okay, you notice I get the camera is not available. Not very exciting, right? So I want to prompt the user. Like the camera is not going to be available because I'm running on the simulator, but if I actually launch it to my phone, the camera would be available. I could launch the camera. But in order to do that, I need to ask the user's permission to use their camera. So in order to do that, I have to update the info.plist file, and I'm never going to remember the setting to prompt the user. So prompt iOS user to use camera. So it's in the info.plist, and it's the NS camera usage description. So I want to add a new row. It's the NS camera. Wasn't it the NS camera? NS camera usage. Apparently it doesn't automatically search this. It's not a select tag. I'm not seeing it. Here it is, privacy camera usage description. And what it wants is I have to give the user a message about why I want to use the camera. So it's going to say, this application is requesting access to use the camera for these purposes. That's where this description is going to come into play. I would like to, so system view controllers uses the camera to load images into the app. Okay. So far, so good. Okay, I want to deploy that to my phone because you're never going to see that message pop up. You're just not. So if I run it on the simulator, what we're going to see is, hey, you don't have access to that. Camera is not available. If I actually deploy it to a device, the camera is going to be available. It's going to pop up and say, hey, is it okay that this application is using your camera? So this is how I want to end today. So if you don't want to stick around or you don't want to see the message or anything like that, I'm actually going to stop recording because it's not necessarily going to record anything that you care about. So I'll stop recording here. This is how I'll end today, but I'm going to deploy it to my phone so you can actually see what it ends up looking like. Okay. There's no new assignment.